Hello, everyone, and welcome to the webinar. This is the Gambling Behaviors Among Young Adults presentation. My name is Nabil Pervez. I am the Gambling Services Coordinator at Recovery Resources in Cleveland, Ohio. This webinar is part of Problem Gambling Services. We are excited to offer this training opportunity. At Recovery Resources, we help people triumph over mental illness, alcoholism, drug, and other addictions. Our services range from mental health and addiction, prevention and treatment, to services to support individuals in recovery, such as housing and employment. We offer services to employers through our Employee Assistance Program and offer trainings and education around gambling prevention and treatment similar to this webinar. As a reminder, to receive CEUs for this training after you have watched the webinar, you can find the webinar post-test link below. And so our objectives today are to discuss the current climate of gambling and problem gambling in Ohio and across the nation, discuss the gambling behaviors of young adults and potential consequences due in part to cultural normalization, look at new data surrounding problem gambling in Ohio and legislation to expand gambling locally and in neighboring states, strategize how to incorporate problem gambling messaging into currently existing alcohol and other drug programming for youth. And so we're going to take some time to discuss a quick overview of the gambling culture. And so that's going to start with looking at the 3 A's. We don't look at, we no longer look at it as compartmentalized. Now with the 3 A's, with an increase in the 3 A's, availability, accessibility, acceptability, with availability, looking at, how available or how available is gambling, in my state or, where I'm at, different legal forms, popularity, what's going to be more popular, accessibility, 48 states all offer some type of gambling, whether it's a combination of casinos, racinos, some sports betting, some don't. And then the acceptability, so religious groups, charities, fundraisers, education, normalcy. With the acceptability with religious groups, I think of church bingo, and charity having church bingo. When it comes to senior centers, maybe they go on trips to a casino, take the day, or at a senior center, they might offer bingo or have bingo night. And so it just makes it more normal and something that people are used to. And so quick overview nationally, so 4 to 6 million Americans meet criteria for a gambling disorder. 2 million people meet the criteria for severe gambling problems. And so we can see with co-occurring issues, having problem gambling associated with any of these other disorders or alongside with any of these other disorders, 73% also have alcohol use disorder, 61% also have personality disorder, 60% also have nicotine dependency, 50% mood disorder, 41% anxiety disorder, 38% drug use disorder, and 20% or 1 in 5 have suicide attempt. So according to Ohio for Responsible Gambling and Ohio Mental Health and Addiction Services, roughly 9 million Ohioans 18 and older, so an estimated little more than 6.5 million, but a little closer to 75% gamble, and an estimated 2.25 million do not gamble. So of those who gamble, an estimated almost 6 million do not have risk factors for an at-risk problem gambling. An estimated 919,162 Ohioans can be categorized as low risk, moderate risk, or problem gamblers. So this is about 10.3% of the general population, or 13.7% of gamblers. So the prevalence of problem gambling is little less than 0.1%, which equates to an estimated 76,379 individuals in the target population of 8.98 million people. And so now taking a moment to look across Ohio and seeing all the different casinos that are available, casinos, racinos. And so there are a total of 11 casinos and racinos currently in our state. We've got, the Jack Cleveland Casino, Hollywood Casino, Jack Cincinnati Casino, Hollywood Casino, and couple racinos in Cleveland, Jack Thistledown, MGM, Northfield. We can see Hollywood at the Mahoning Valley Racecourse, Scioto Downs, Hollywood at the Dayton Raceway, Miami Valley Gaming, Belterra Park Gaming and Entertainment Center. And so before a decade ago, we really wouldn't have seen any of these, right? We would have seen, a lot of these casinos started popping up in 2012, 2013. More specifically in Cleveland, it was May of 2012, Toledo, May of 2012, in Columbus, October of 2012, and then in Cincinnati, 2013. And so at a time when there wasn't a casino or a racino in Ohio, we could either go to our neighboring states where they would offer casinos, racinos, so people would take trips, go for the day, go for a while. And even before then, it was, when we didn't have our neighboring states, it was, going much, much farther, maybe going to Las Vegas or, Atlantic City. And so now looking at, well, what is gambling? What's the big deal? What's the problem with it? Looking at definitions, warning signs, predictors. And so to answer the question of what is gambling, gambling is risking something of value on an event that is determined mostly by chance. So the DSM-5 will say that it is risking something of value in the hopes of obtaining something of greater value. Gamblers Anonymous, any betting or wagering for self or others, whether for money or not, no matter how slight or insignificant, where the outcome is uncertain or depends upon chance or skill, constitutes as gambling. So the important thing to focus on here is that it doesn't have to necessarily be money. Anything that's important to me, maybe it's my mortgage, maybe it's my car, maybe it's my shoes, maybe it's this bag of chips, anything that I find important or something that I value can constitute as gambling if I'm risking that to maybe get something of better value or greater value. And so why people might gamble, many different reasons, right? Some people look for that excitement, that thrill factor, the what if I do win this money? What if I do win, the jackpot? And also the social norm, right? Is it socially acceptable? Am I somebody who goes to a senior center where maybe we go on trips a lot, or maybe growing up, my family or friends, when we would send around, or send out Christmas cards and things like that, and it had, or birthday cards, and it had, scratch off tickets or, lottery, was it socially acceptable for me to gamble? Also boredom, right? So some people, if there's nothing else to do, I might just go and gamble. I might take that time, especially, now with, with the pandemic going on and lots of people, during the lockdown and during the quarantine, possibly feeling more bored and utilizing the internet gambling, playing those, video games, things like that. Am I trying to win money? Am I just gambling because I'm trying to win money? Am I trying to earn money? Am I also trying to escape any problems? Am I experiencing any kind of emotional, physical traumas or different problems in my life? And do I feel like I'm trying to escape those problems? And so I might also feel important. I might feel kind of like the big shot, right? If I work for a company and, maybe we go for an outing and we're going to the casino, we're going to Vegas or going to any of these places, and maybe it makes me feel a little more important, right? Maybe I get to throw on my suit, or I wear my sunglasses, and I just feel really, really cool. I'm the big shot. I'm somebody that everyone's looking up to. And so there's tons of reasons why, but also different types of gambling activities. Lottery, scratch offs, sports betting, fantasy gaming, card and table games, dice games, internet gambling, internet cafes, running numbers, horse, dog racing, raffles with the horse and dog racing, really any animal, just animal racing in general, bingo, slot machines, video games. So lots of different types of gambling activities. Not a lot of people realize that all of these really do equate to gambling in some way. Some people look at some of these activities and think, no, I think it's only lottery, or I think it's only going to the casino, right? But we know that it's much more than that. And so with problem gambling, the definition problem is not dependent on the frequency of the amount spent. Could be flags, but not in identifying the diagnosis. So gambling is a problem when it disrupts or damages uh, different parts of our health, right? Physical, mental, emotional, work, the people in our lives, family, friends, our finances, reputation. So um, different warning signs. So it's important if you notice these in a friend or a loved one. Uh, it's something to maybe have that conversation, or have them look into these warning signs and looking into to getting help, and being there for them. And so with those warning signs, spending more than I was intending, right? If I go in saying I'm only going to spend 20 bucks, 30 bucks, and I end up spending a couple hundred, but constantly I'm spending that couple hundred, and um, exaggerating how much I win, right? Or I win versus my losses, or understating my losses, I should say. So if I'm winning, if I won $500, but it took me $1,000 to win that 500, did I really win a whole lot? And lying about frequency and amount that I'm spending, right? How often I'm going and how much I'm spending on this. And do I feel like I'm constantly lying to people? Am I maybe even lying about where I was, right? Maybe I said I was at work, or I had to stay at work longer, but maybe I actually got out an hour or two early, and I went and stopped at the casino, or I went to stop at a gas station to purchase some scratch off tickets, or maybe I sat in the parking lot on my phone and I was playing um, any of the casino apps. Am I replacing my hobbies, right? Do I have certain things that I was doing beforehand that maybe I'm not necessarily doing anymore? Hobbies, activities, things that I'm interested in, people that I'm usually hanging out with, are those all kind of being put off to the side? And not having money for food, books, my bills, um, being able to pay for clothing, or anything that comes up, going groceries. Am I having a hard time holding on to money for those things? Do I feel like I need to borrow? Maybe I don't have a lot of money because I'm spending it on lottery, or I'm spending it on DraftKings or FanDuel, and I'm dropping money to on these different bets. And so now I feel like I need to borrow more money. Maybe I realized I spent the money I was going to use on my electric bill, and now all of a sudden I find myself going to somebody asking for money, or if I'm going to the bank for a small loan for, maybe bigger purchases. Am I pawning, selling items? Am I, slowly taking things out of my own home, or, maybe my family's home, and, selling them off? And am I having a hard time stopping myself from thinking about gambling and thinking about going to a casino, or, what I might be experiencing there? Um, and do I also feel like I'm more distressed, depressed, irritable, agitated? When I think about gambling, right, I'm so annoyed that I didn't win. I can't wait to go back because I want to prove to them that I've proved to myself, prove to other people that no, I can make it. I can get this money. And so, predictors of problem gambling. So, getting a good understanding of, you know, what could be a predictor, what could be something that happens that might tell us that, okay, this person might become a problem gambler. They might have a problem with gambling as they get older, and maybe they experience an early big win. Maybe they were introduced to it at an earlier age, right, with the birthday cards and Christmas cards, getting lottery tickets or scratch off tickets. Gambling types. So if somebody's playing electronic games versus, just normal table games, EGMs are electronic gaming machines, so they are thought to be more problematic than table games because there is no pause in play, right? Where it's just go, 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 and if I'm not able to slow myself down, that could possibly cause some problems. Also, the availability of opportunities, right? If I work directly across the street from a casino, or if I, no matter where I'm at, if I have my phone available, or if I have a computer in front of me and I'm able to go online and participate in uh, gambling style games, there could be that could also be a predictor for problem gambling. Do I have a family history? Do I have a family history of maybe not necessarily gambling, but any drug and alcohol disorder? Or maybe I do have a family history of problem gambling. Also, the cultural community acceptance attitudes. What is it like socially? Growing up in an area, in a community where everybody's gambling, whether it's at church, or getting those cards in the mail, or um, playing certain games online, but the acceptance there, right? So even the adults looking at me as a child and being excited for me and being excited with me on what I could possibly win from this scratch off ticket. And then also believing in gambling fallacies, right? So gambling fallacies are, those certain things that people might believe, I can win this if I do X, Y, and Z. I can win this game, or I can win more money at the slot machine if I, pet the top of it, or if I, you know, make sure I'm not sitting, right? Maybe if I'm standing, so different types of superstitions, false beliefs, things that aren't really going to affect the outcome of, winning at a casino or racino, or a video game, but having those beliefs it's going to help. And then also alcohol and drug use. Those are all going to be predictors. So now looking at biological mechanisms, so how the brain works, and how problem gambling kind of falls under this. And to understand problem or disordered gambling, we have to look at the biology and how our brain works. And so the brain registers all pleasures in the same way. So whether they originate with a psychoactive drug, monetary reward or sexual encounter, laughter, or a satisfying meal, in the brain, pleasure has a distinct signature, the release of the neurotransmitter dopamine. So an addictive drug can release 2 to 10 times more dopamine than a natural reward. And so while using, our body stops making natural dopamine, which then our body requires requires that dopamine from other sources, from outside of our body. And so something that's important here that we can see on the screen is, that our brain does not fully develop until we're about 25, 24, 25 years old. And so, if my brain is not fully developing and it's not fully understanding the risk of what could happen by me gambling or by me starting to gamble at an early age and kind of slowly growing into that and gambling more, I'm not able to understand that or truly understand the consequences with losing a certain amount of money or whatever it is that I value. And so that's an important point to kind of make with, especially with our brain and our functioning. So with the DSM-5, neuroscience and genetics research has played a key role in these determinations. So brain imaging studies and neurochemical tests have made a strong case that gambling activates the reward system in much the same way that a drug does. Substance use disorders, their similarities are going to be impaired control, tolerance, withdrawal. When it comes to cravings, disordered gamblers report cravings and highs in response to their stimulus of choice. And then the hereditary nature, it also runs in the families, often alongside with other addictions. And so there are similar treatments when it comes to substance use disorders and problem gambling. And so all drugs taken in excess have a common direct activation of the brain reward system, which is involved in the reinforcement of behaviors and production of memories. So they produce such an intense activation of the reward system that normal activities may be neglected. They might not happen. And instead of achieving reward system activation through adaptive behaviors, drugs of abuse directly activate the reward pathways. So we can see here how each one is going to affect the next, and it becomes this cycle. And so looking at the impact, so we kind of mentioned this earlier, but the person who is experiencing the problem with gambling is not going to be the only one or the only thing that's impacted by the problem gambling, right? There's, of course, those personal impacts from stress, depression, anxiety, health, suicide ideation, suicide thoughts. It's going to impact our finances, right? So financial hardships, debts, assets that I'm losing, bankruptcy, dealing with loan sharks. Legally, besides the bankruptcy, loan sharks, theft, imprisonment, domestic violence or other violence, interpersonal impact, so neglecting our families, impacting maybe the relationship that we have with our children or with our family and even our significant other. And also community service, right? So loads of charities, tons of public purses available, and work and study, so job loss, absenteeism, poor performance, right? So it's going to impact even my job as well. And so looking at the current scope, expansion, emerging trends. So we're going to look at current scope and expansion. Lots of things that we're going to look at different things that young adults are more interested in. And so, with the scope, availability, accessibility, acceptability, so Ohio youth today are the first generation to be fully exposed to multiple forms of legal gambling. So think back when we were young, we didn't really have all these options that they have today, right? We didn't have all the different casinos available, the online presence, the different apps that we can download, the video games, the video chatting about, or the videos that we can watch people gamble. We didn't really have all of that. And so, the lottery in Ohio started in the 70s, and we didn't have fantasy sports, video gaming, certain types of gambling is going to work with different types of people, right? So young adults today or youth of today are going to be impacted by different types of gambling than adults or even older adults. And so having that increase in our availability, accessibility, acceptability, it's going to be huge. And the earlier that we're introduced to gambling, the more likely we're to experience some of those predictors for problem gambling or experiencing those warning signs. And looking at the expansion, so machines do provide credit card capabilities. So this has been expanded. A few years ago, legalized fantasy sports are available in Ohio, and so in the past you needed cash to buy or to purchase lottery tickets, right? And so now um, with the scratch off machines, the lottery machines, now we have that capability of using credit cards, so it kind of adds another element there. And so we're going to look at national expansion as well. Later on, we'll talk a little bit about Pennsylvania and their gambling expansion, and New Jersey and what was going on there with their repeal process. And so daily fantasy sports. So, we became the 18th state to legalize fantasy sports. So House Bill 132 was approved in 2017 by the House in May, and then and the Senate in December. The bill was then signed into law by the governor. The license, would cost $10,000 a year, or if somebody could upfront the $30,000 for 3 years. And so this bill makes fantasy sports considered skill gaming and not necessarily gambling. And so fantasy sports, can't be focused on horse racing, high school, college, universities, or youth sports leagues. And so part of the revenue from casinos, Racinos, they do fund prevention services. So since daily fantasy sports is not considered gambling, this is something that we need to look into. Also, it shows how or shows that they have the requirements for these, or that we should have these requirements for these websites, to have problem gambling hotlines and prevention services, and to show other services that are available. Supreme Court ruled in 2018, allowed states to determine the legality of sports bets from an education and responsible gambling perspective. Appropriate consumer protections should be the focus of advocacy efforts. Sports gambling, will expose new audiences to gambling opportunities, and it may result in an increase in problem gambling behaviors. House Bill 194 passed by the House in May 2020 and was introduced to the Senate at the beginning of June 2020. The lottery retrofitted the machines in 2017. So in October 2017, those machines were able to accept credit cards for lottery purchases. These transactions are accepted at retailer counters and standalone machines. Consumer protection, when it comes to credit card transactions, they are limited to $100 per day per card. And even taking a closer look at at these machines, or looking at lottery tickets, other consumer protections is how they've added the problem gambling hotline number. We can see problem gambling (1-800-589-9966), and then on the right, using that verbiage, right? So does playing the lottery no longer seem fun? Well, help is available, and they can call that number. So there have been more consumer protections added. And so now looking specifically at casinos, Racinos, the Jack Cleveland Casino, is looking to add more gaming, almost like a gaming hub. Jack is also looking at gaming theaters to allow people to watch, other people play. So to the right, we have this image, and it might not be maybe as extreme as this, but this just gives us an idea of what it could look like, right? So this is something that's happening in other countries when it comes to video game tournaments and things like that, and how do they adapt that to a casino? Do they have like a little stage where people can watch other people play different games, and maybe they compete against each other? And um, More machines are popping up everywhere, so machine gaming is, playing faster or being played faster, which it could be more risky, right? I mentioned this earlier that, with those gaming machines, they can, because we're not able to pause it, there isn't as much pause as there would be in a normal table game. So if I'm not able to have that moment to kind of check in with myself, that's where that risk could possibly be. And so there is that potential there. So with Pennsylvania, they have expanded their gambling capabilities, and through satellite casinos, tablet gaming in airports, fantasy sports, video gaming terminals at truck stops. New Jersey, so they were trying to fight to repeal the Federal Professional and Amateur Sports Protection Act of 1992. So this would have outlawed traditional sports betting across the nation. And so if the Professional and Amateur Sports Protection Act was found unconstitutional, it would open up sports betting to any state that wished to create legislation. And so they were looking at, traditional sports betting, trying to get rid of those protection acts, or that protection act. So due to expansion, looking into the future, future implications, so the normalcy, popularity, right? So because of video games and having that virtual casino experience through apps that we can download, makes it more normal and makes it more popular. Uh, how early we're introduced to gambling, or even to these video gaming, electronic applications on our phones, the earlier that we're introduced to those, there's going to be some risk there. Crossing borders, right? So Pennsylvania, like we were saying, they have a lot of these different capabilities of gamble, right? The terminal at truck stops, the tablets at air terminals, and things like that. So being in Ohio, we're so close to Pennsylvania, there's going to be that possibility of crossing borders, or there could be that possibility of crossing borders, where we could go over and participate in those games. And also the integrity of the sport, criminal activities, problem gambling, gambling disorders, and further expanding in Ohio, further expanding the different bills, the different laws, policies, more casinos, or expanding what could be legalized, and do also looking at future implications, even looking at right now, due to COVID, we could possibly see more of an increase in problem gambling, because since the lockdown, having the casinos and racinos recently open back up, there have been rather large increase of people venturing back to the casinos, um, even though with the pandemic going on, and with quarantine, and people being a little nervous or unsure if they should go, people are traveling, and we're seeing an increase in even video gaming and online sports betting. Even though, uh, you know, for example, like in New York, people would have to, would be going to New Jersey, because New Jersey is where they have that sports betting available. And so now looking at gambling and young adults, so youth rates of being at risk for compulsive gambling are, 2 to 3 times higher than adults. So why talk to gambling with college students? And so we're looking at age, availability, acceptability, advertising, media, access to cash. And so with the age, college years are associated with a wide range of risky behaviors, right? Going back to when we talked about the brain, and our brain's not fully matured until we're about 25, so we're going to have a harder time assessing for risk, and so there's going to be that association there, with availability. So first generation to be exposed to wide scale legal gambling, increasing gambling venues over the past 30 years, even looking at technology. So how available is gambling to these young adults, to these college age students. The acceptability, so operated by the government, sponsored by faith-based organizations, commonly endorsed by schools, integrated into mainstream media, looking at advertising in media. So promoted as sport, glamorized, personalized, only really shows the winning, right? So I kind of mentioned this a little earlier too, that uh, across the country, across the world, really, these different large scale tournaments, video game tournaments, colleges putting together teams, uh, and so there's going to be that advertising part of it, that media aspect to it, when they're showing, these, some of them young kids winning, thousands upon thousands of dollars, maybe even millions of dollars. um, and so now looking at the access to cash. So the average college student receives about 25 credit card solicitations per semester, and that's from the National Public Radio. And so, if these college students are constantly being bombarded with credit cards coming in, and if they have a hard time with financial literacy and understanding what they shouldn't do, getting that many credit cards and getting that many letters and emails about credit cards, and there's going to be that access there, so it becomes a perfect storm. College students, so 6% have a serious gambling problem. Having the psychological difficulties, failing grades, with that debt, student debt being, one of the largest debts in the United States. So per person, loss per year is gonna be about 30 grand. And so about 85% of college students have been involved in some form of gambling, and 23% report being involved on a weekly basis. And so compared to their non-gambling counterparts, students who had gambled in the past year had higher rates of binge drinking, marijuana use, cigarette use, illicit drug use, unsafe sex after drinking. And so this is a good point to integrate uh, you know, problem gambling education, prevention, not only with alcohol and other drug education, but with because of the risky behaviors in general, with those risky behaviors in general. And so college athletes, 67% of all college students bet on sports. Nearly 30% of male student athletes bet on sports, and 1 in 20 will bet on a game that they're directly involved in. And so according to the National Center of Responsible Gaming, the most frequently chosen gambling activities for college students are going to be seen here: the lottery, playing the lottery, um, card games are next, pool raffles, then sports betting, game of skills, casino gambling, bingo, slot machines, dice games. So we can see that lottery at, 43, 44%, card games, 37, 38%. And so with college administration policies, looking at, any changes, any possible changes. So campus efforts to address gambling and recovery from addiction are almost non-existent compared to that of alcohol and other drugs. Nearly all U.S. colleges and universities do have policies on student alcohol use. However, 22% have a formal policy on gambling. The amount of attention given to problem gambling is well out of the proportion, compared to gambling availability and the greater, susceptibility of young adults or young people to gambling problems than adults. And, wide scale internet poker, et cetera, all these different, different games that are available to these young adults. And so this is just a little quote from, Harvard Medical School. So unlike drug and alcohol education, there is no federal mandate requiring schools to educate students or parents about the dangers of excessive gambling. Combined with the lack of policy response by administrators, this situation leaves an open door for students related to gambling disorder to emerge unchecked. So, you know, because of this, because of the way we look at drugs and alcohol, which we should, right? We should have these prevention measures set in place, but by not having anything for gambling, by no focus on gambling, then it makes it harder for students to realize that, if I go to these parties or if I go to these, different dorm rooms and we're playing poker and, we're playing different card games, or if we are playing the lottery, we might not necessarily see the risk there. And so by having something set in place by the universities, it makes it easier for us to, help those students and help everyone get on the same page and have a good understanding of what could happen with gambling. And part of the reason too, um, with the focus being more on drugs and alcohol education, with gambling there is no intoxication, there is no overdose, right? There's no test, no way to test for gambling. So it's that much harder for us to, or at least for the administrators, it's going to be much harder for them to, really, figure out how they can help somebody when there's no way that they can really test for it, or, physically see through, like I said, the intoxication, overdose. So now looking at programming, so educational efforts, right? What are the different, what is different gambling awareness? What are the different types of gambling awareness out there and what's available? So, where can gambling awareness live? So it can live through outreach focus and curriculum, right? So orientation, dorm rooms, student centers, first year seminars, athletics, right? So providing that education, whether it's being physically there or virtually being there, or posting up different, flyers, different informational material with curriculum. So through public health, social working, counseling, finance, criminology, statistics, psychiatry. So really utilizing and using these different areas where students might go and interact, where they can learn a little bit more about gambling and the impact that it could have. And so current college university programs, so there's the Catalyst Bystander intervention program, Greek consultation program, NCAA Don't Bet on It, and then Smart Bet. And so the NCAA, it's a good program with videos, puts it in terms that a college athlete would consider. So what's important to them. And so these are great programs. So with Smart Bet, 18 to 25 year old, so standalone or integrated into a curriculum, and it looks at risks, warning signs, attitudes. And so this is, Smart Bet is going to be, through Prevention Action Alliance. With the Catalyst Bystander Intervention Program, so 3 to 5 45-minute sessions designed to educate elementary, middle and high school students on how to become catalysts for change. So including teaching how to make a healthier, safer, and better community in all their spheres of influence. And the new Ohio Youth campaign, so Change the Game, was developed to raise awareness of the realities of youth gambling amongst parents and educators to help prevent behaviors that can form into greater issues later in life. So they offer many resources for parents, educators, and youth. Some examples are, different fact sheets, warning signs, discussion guides. So a lot of good information there that can be utilized by, different people who make an impact on the youth lives. And so as a conclusion, having that conversation. So, what don't they know, right? So let's have that conversation and help them understand, and answering those questions that they might have, or maybe answering questions that they didn't realize that they would have. Figuring out what messages will stick. If I talk to somebody, how can I get through to them? And then also making sure to debunk any myths, right? We don't want to promote those fallacies. We want to make sure that we're all on the same page that, this isn't how that's going to work, right? This is a myth for a reason. And we really want to promote those truths and the facts that are out there. So definitely identifying as a public health issue, right? It is a public health issue. It affects all aspects of health, physical, social, mental. It affects all aspects of life, family, work, finances, reputation. Gambling disorder does not discriminate, right? It doesn't matter who I am, where I come from. A gambling disorder can happen to anybody. Problems can develop from any form. So from any of the different types of gambling that we did, talk about, the lottery, sports, sports betting, casino, video games, scratch off tickets, right? Any of these different types of gambling, a problem can develop from it. And so it is preventable, it is identifiable, and it is treatable. And so there is always going to be that opportunity to receive help. There is also the Cuyahoga Problem Gambling Coalition. So this is a coalition that, many different professionals across prevention, treatment, even people within the community who have been impacted by problem gambling. We come together and, we, put out educational materials. We discuss. We go over different new trends and everything that's up and coming when it comes to problem gambling. So if you do have any questions about the Cuyahoga Problem Gambling Coalition, if you're interested in joining the coalition, please reach out to either myself, Nabil Pervez, or Amy McCain at Recovery Resources. And so looking at rules of responsible gambling, right? So treat the money that we want to bet, treat the money we lose as a cost of the entertainment, right? So looking at it as I'm playing this money and I'm not expecting to win it back, right? I'm not expecting to win more. I'm just here to have fun. So treat any winnings as just a bonus, right? Okay, cool. I get to play this game a little bit longer. I get to play the slot machine a little bit longer. Plan ahead. So how much money do I want to bring? Do I want to make sure that I have on me? Do I want to make sure that I don't end up going to, to get more money, going to an ATM? So decide before we go to not only what we can afford to lose, but, how much do we want to spend, and making sure that we don't change our mind when we're at the casino after we've lost. Setting a time limit, and sticking to it. So if I say I'm only going to be there for an hour, then I want to make sure that I'm only there for an hour, whether that's setting an alarm or, if I do have somebody there with me who can help me, and then being prepared to lose, right? So the odds are that we will lose. So accepting loss as part of the game. So knowing that, yeah, I'm probably not going to leave here a millionaire. I'm probably not going to leave here with $1,000 extra in my pocket, and that's fine and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. And so maybe even making it a private rule not to gamble on credit. So don't borrow to gamble. So maybe I make that something that I do. Also creating balance in our life. So gambling should not interfere or with or substitute for the friends in our lives, our family, our work, any other activities that we enjoy, any hobbies that we enjoy. So we want to make sure we have balance there. We also wanted to avoid chasing any lost money. So after you've reached that designated dollar limit, so don't continue to play in order to try to win back the money. So maybe I stop here, go home, maybe come back in a week or a couple weeks. Whatever I kind of allow myself, whatever time I allow myself, but making sure that I'm not chasing that lost money. And so also try not to gamble. Don't gamble as a way to cope with emotional or physical pain, right? It can be difficult, but finding healthier outlets, having a conversation with somebody else if I am experiencing emotional, physical pain, maybe reaching out to recovery resources for services, looking for professional help, professional counselors, family members, friends. So there are people out there that we can talk to. When we go to the casino and we're playing, we're not really, fixing that problem. We're not really looking at the deep rooted issue there. We're kind of masking it and we're playing and we're just zoning out, and that's not something that we should try and do, right? So that's something something that we should try and seek help. And so becoming educated about the warning signs of compulsive gambling, right? Talking about or being mindful of those different warning signs that we had mentioned. And so there is help, right? There's always going to be help available. If you or someone you know is dealing with a gambling problem, help is available. Recovery resources, gambling addiction services. We offer gambling addiction services. So we offer individual counseling, group counseling, family counseling, and there is no charge for our gambling services. And so this is our information here, our different offices. Our main office, Lakewood office, Old Brooklyn office. If you have any questions, you can definitely give us a call at 216-431-4131. And so I would like to thank you for participating. So to complete the home study version of this training to receive continuing education, follow the steps below. If you have any questions, please contact either myself, Nabil Pervez, at npervez@recres.org. So that's NPERVAIZ at recres.org, or Amy McCain at amccain@recres.org. That's AMCCAIN@recres.org. Thank you again and have a great day.